Bullies. A staple of almost every animated sitcom out there. Someone to constantly rag on the main characters, beat them up, put them down, just pretty much always be there to foil whatever the main character is trying to accomplish. These can range from pretty harmless to downright psychotic and pretty much anywhere in between. So today I'm going to be taking a look at over 25 different cartoon bullies to find out who's the worst of the worst. The higher they are on the list, the worse they are. And you might be asking, what sort of experience do I have with bullies to where I feel like I can chime in on this? None. I wasn't bullied as a kid. Look at this picture of me. I was cool as hell. If anything, I get bullied more as an adult by my wife. I'm just kidding. It's my kids. For the list, I tried to stick to one bully per show, but there's a few shows on here where I couldn't settle for just one of the dickheads that show up. So let's kick things off with a bully from one of my favorite shows as a kid, Lars from Rocket Power. The older brother of Twister, one of the main characters from the show. He mostly aims his sights at his little brother throughout the show, but occasionally also picking on Twister's friends. He's not exactly like malicious in any way, just sort of being more of a nuisance to the Rocket crew. Name calling, pranks, and maybe a little bit of intimidation here and there, but nothing ever really too bad. There's even been a few times in the show where he's been shown to care about his little brother and even help him and his friends out from time to time, although pretty few and far in between. I think Lars is definitely a jerk, but not the worst by any means. He's gonna go on C tier. Snotty Boy from Barnyard. Now this little piece of shit though. Bullying other kids? Sure, it happens. Bullying animals? Fuck this guy. He spends pretty much the whole show not just harassing all the animals at the farm, but also his own family from time to time. But he's constantly mocking the animals, tormenting them, and just pretty much in general being a gross little dickhead. No redemption moment, no likable qualities. I don't think he's the worst out there, but I for sure hate this little shithead. A tier. Angelica, Rugrats. Listen, okay. On one hand, she's a toddler. She doesn't really know any better. But on the other hand, in my experience, toddlers can definitely be bullies. I should know, I've got two of my own. I love them to death. But they spend every waking hour finding new ways to bully me. So I'm not going to let her off the hook for that. She definitely can be a bit of a bully, being rude and mean to the babies and sometimes just sort of toying with them for her own amusement. She's manipulative, bossy, and pretty much just does whatever she can to get what she wants. But she does tend to usually learn a lesson along the way. And while she can be a bit of a brat, she does have her moments here and there where she helps out the babies and is kind to them. So I'm probably going to put her on C tier. Helga, Hey Arnold. Helga's main bullying antics are mostly aimed at the main character Arnold. But there's honestly some complexities going on here. Most of the time when she's hurling insults his way, it's used as sort of a masking mechanism for her true feelings about Arnold, which is she's absolutely obsessed with him. In reality, she's writing poetry, daydreaming about him, and even building shrines to the guy. And even without the Arnold of it all, she's got a pretty rough home life going on. She's got parents who neglect her and then an older sister who overshadows everything she does. Not to say these are like legitimate reasons to be a bully, but this is one of those instances where she's not just mean to be mean. It's more of like a defense mechanism to hide her true feelings. But even with that being said, she's kind of a dick. Constantly insulting people, not even just Arnold, but also just kind of being a jerk to everybody around her, even her best friend. There's complexities for sure, but she's still a bit of an asshole. I'm gonna go B tier. Wolfgang, Hey Arnold. Now, where Helga is like a complex character with a bit of depth and reasoning going on for her bullying, Wolfgang's not. This is just your classic douchebag. He's just an older kid that treats Arnold and his classmates like crap, constantly just ridiculing and picking on them whenever he can. He's a smug jerk with basically no redeeming qualities at all. No nuance, no reasoning, just a 5th grade douchebag. I'm gonna go A tier. Reggie Bullnerd, ChalkZone. Reggie is another one of your like classic schoolyard bullies. He's just a loudmouth jerk who's constantly trying to make Rudy's life hell. Picking on him, tattling on him, or just trying to take his chalk only because Rudy has it and he doesn't. He's not really smart enough to be like evil or malicious in any way. He's just sort of like a big dumb brute who always gets in the way. There's nothing really threatening about him. He's just pretty much annoying and always there. I'm gonna go C tier. Roger, Doug. Roger Klotz is sort of like your classic 90s bully. Not really like physically violent in any way, but just pretty much always there to mess up Doug's day and send some sarcasm his way. He usually sticks with just name calling, snarky comments, and the occasional prank here and there. He's smug, cocky, and usually a little bit manipulative. He's never really like out to physically hurt anybody or anything, but mostly keen on just embarrassing other people to make himself look better. There are some moments sprinkled in here and there where he sort of lets his guard down and shows a softer side, but it's definitely a bit of a rare occurrence. I think Roger's going on B tier. Butch, Jimmy Neutron. While Jimmy's usually busier dealing with like world-threatening menaces from time to time, him and his friends still have the occasional run-in with their resident school bully, Butch. Now, he's a pretty one-dimensional character, like we never really get any backstory or anything. He's just kind of there to be a dick. He's usually just kind of around threatening kids and trying to give them swirlies and wedgies. Classic school bully stuff. He's cartoonishly dumb and aggressive to the point where that's pretty much where his character starts and ends. Not much to him. Just a dumb kid that likes to pick on other kids. I'm gonna go C tier. Sarah, Ed, and Eddy. There's a trope that's seen quite a bit here where the characters will have like an older sibling who's a bully to them, like we saw with Lars from Rocket Power. But Sarah here kind of flips that script. Being the younger sister of Ed and younger than most of the characters in the show doesn't stop her one bit from being one of the most menacing and cruel characters that the show has to offer. Constantly loud, manipulative, and even violent. Throwing tantrums when she doesn't get her way to the point where most of the characters are scared of her. And honestly, I get it. I would be too. This kid is just filled with rage and ready to let loose on anybody that's not named Jimmy. I will say, it seems like a lot of the time she just kind of wants to do her own thing and mind her own business. But when somebody like the Eds get in her way, she has no problem letting her rage loose on any of them. This girl is terrifying. A tier. Kevin from Ed, and Eddy. Now, Kevin, on the other hand, is pretty rarely violent, mostly resorting to just name-calling, mockery, and just in general trying to knock the Eds down a peg. He's not like violent or scary or dangerous, just kind of like a smug asshole. Pretty much always just belittling other people to try to make himself look cooler. He's just that condescending kid who's riding around doing wheelies on his bike with his backwards hat thinking he's the coolest kid out there. Shit. That hat is pretty cool. Should I start wearing my hat like that? No, right? Kevin's just a jerk with no real redeeming qualities, but he's not like an outright menace like some of these other people. I think Kevin's going to go on C tier. Eddy's brother, Ed, and Eddy. Only showing up in the final episode of the show. Once we finally get the reveal of this older brother that Eddy's been constantly raving about throughout the entire series, he turns out to be pretty despicable. He might not just be the biggest piece of shit in this whole show, but maybe one of the worst characters I've ever seen in a kid's show. This isn't some like schoolyard bully who's calling you names and trying to give you a wedgie. Eddy's brother shows up and almost immediately starts being a jerk and then gets to the point where he's physically beating Eddy in front of his friends. And it's not like played for laughs either. He's just kind of like straight up abusive to him. Like, this is pretty much a turning point in the show where it goes from comedic bullying to just downright scary abuse. And in a way, it sort of like recontextualizes the entire character of Eddy, showing that his constant scamming and trying to impress everyone was just sort of his way of dealing with this shitty home life that he had. This isn't just a bully. This is a grade A piece of shit. S tier, without a doubt, one of the worst of the worst. Nelson, The Simpsons. One of the most iconic bullies out there, animated or otherwise. A bit of a classic bully stereotype, you know, stealing kids' lunch monies, beating them up, and just generally being a nuisance. I mean, the guy's catchphrase is literally him laughing at other people's expense.
Pardon me a moment.
But throughout the long tenured run of The Simpsons, he has been shown to have a heart here and there. I think Nelson's an all-timer bully for sure, but not one of the worst. So I'm gonna go B tier. Erwin Lawson. Recess. Lawson from Recess is definitely a bully for sure, but he kind of sucks at it. Like, he wants to be top dog of the playground, but he doesn't really have the smarts or the cruelty to pull it off. He's just sort of like a loudmouth jerk. He talks a big game, will push kids around, and then will tattle on them in the very next instance. This kid is a poser. Just a second string bully who can't even figure out how to do that properly. C tier. Terrence, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Another jerk of a sibling, Terrence is Mac's older brother, and pretty much his entire characterization is just being a dick to Mac. Unlike Lars, Terrence doesn't really have any redeeming qualities going for him. He's loud, aggressive, violent, and just pretty much causing trouble whenever he's on screen. This kid is so petty that he once made an evil imaginary friend just to be a dick. He's sort of like if a white Monster Energy can came to life. This guy sucks, for sure. But I don't think he's quite evil enough to go in S tier, so I'm going to go on A. Jimmy. F is for family. Now, Jimmy Fitzsimmons isn't your average everyday bully. This kid is evil, constantly tormenting the other kids in the neighborhood with insults, intimidation, and even just outright threats.
Say I'm your best friend or I'll drown you in a puddle!
He's chaotic, unpredictable, and honestly one bad day away from ending up on like a government watch list. This isn't some lovable jerk, this is a preteen psychopath. Yeah, he's got a shitty home life, but it doesn't excuse the fact that this kid is probably going to end up with like a Netflix documentary about him someday. Jimmy's a complete psycho. S tier. Buford. Phineas and Ferb. Now, he may initially come off as like the bully of the show, and we'll even refer to him as one from time to time, but don't let him fool you. This kid's got a heart of gold. He's about as threatening as like a teddy bear in a leather jacket. I think my cat is more of a bully to me than he is to his friends. He gives off like a slightly irritated bulldog vibe. Like, might seem a bit jarring at first, but once you warm up to him, it'll be good. I don't think he even belongs on the same list as some of these other characters, so I'm going to put him on D tier. Tammy, Bob's Burgers. Tammy is like your run-of-the-mill mean girl middle schooler. Like, she's not throwing any punches, but she's throwing hella shade. She spends her days either entirely focused on herself or spreading gossip to try to make others look bad. She's passive-aggressive, fake, and just straight up two-faced. She does occasionally like join in on the other kids' antics, but it's almost always in like a self-serving way. She might not be like aggressive or violent like some of these other kids, but she's downright mean and self-absorbed. I think Tammy goes on B tier. Flats. SpongeBob SquarePants. Flats is a bit of a weird character, mostly due to the fact that he just shows up and immediately wants to kick SpongeBob's butt.
Hi, SpongeBob. I'm gonna kick your butt.
Not because SpongeBob did anything to him or even annoyed him. He just wants to beat him up purely because he wants to kick someone's butt. And he's like relentless about it too, just doing whatever he can to fight this guy that he just met. No tragic backstory, no morals or lessons learned. He just wants to kick someone's butt. It's like, take up MMA or something, my dude. Get that aggression out. He's just kind of like violence incarnate. Flats goes on A tier. Cartman, South Park. Cartman might not be like the first person you think of when you think of a cartoon bully, but maybe he should be. With how often he's ragging on Kyle or manipulating Butters or even his own mom or just straight up destroying people's lives. This dude basically uses like psychological warfare against not just his peers, but any adults that have the misfortune to cross him. A master of scheming, lying, gaslighting, and just emotional manipulation. And oh yeah, he made a kid eat his own parents. Cartman is S tier. Actually, Cartman is above S tier. Cartman is pure evil, disguised as a chubby little child. S+. Spurg, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Now, Spurg here takes us back into like classic schoolyard bully territory. Just a big dumb jerk trying to steal people's lunch money or beat them up. But I do think he actually gets his karma more often than any other character on the list. So it's a bit hard to take him seriously at that point. Sometimes I even start to feel bad for him. And then I stop. He's a jerk for sure, but he doesn't touch some of the others on this list. So I'm going to put him on C tier. Myrtle, Lilo and Stitch. Myrtle might not be like the violent, sadistic bully that some of these other kids are, but she's something that might be just as bad. This kid is just an emotional bully, constantly harassing and putting down Lilo, and even having her little friends gang up on her. No redeeming qualities, pretty much just a grade A brat who's constantly trying to make somebody else's life worse. I think the first movie should have ended with Stitch launching her into the sun. A tier. Robbie, Gravity Falls. Now, Robbie isn't like the other kids on this list. He's different. He's a moody, emo edgelord who's definitely more bark than bite. His aggression tends to be aimed towards Dipper, mostly just trying to call him names, humiliate him, insult him. He's not really like too dangerous or anything, and he does soften up a little bit over time. But there is that one episode where he tries to like mind control Wendy after they break up. That's creepy as hell. So for the manipulation and just the general douchiness, I'm going to put him on B. Pacifica, Gravity Falls. Initially, Pacifica starts off as like your average mean girl. She's snotty, bratty, thinks she's better than everyone. She's mean-spirited and constantly putting everybody else down. At least that's how she starts the show. But by the end of the series, she actually shows some serious growth, turning out to be not just a nicer person, but actively trying to help the twins and trying to save the day. She actually might have the most growth and the best character arc of this entire list. I'd go as far to say she ends the show not a bully. I think if she stayed like her original character, this would be different, but people change and I respect that. I'm going to put her on D tier. Binky, Arthur. At first glance, Binky seems like your average bully. He's big, gruff, and seemingly always ready to pummel someone into the ground. But dig a little deeper, you find a kid who plays clarinet, loves ballet, and actually cares for his friends. He's had his moments here and there, mostly in the earlier seasons where he sort of comes off like a jerk, but more often than not, he actually means well. Even when he throws out the occasional tease, he's not doing it in like a malicious way or anything. He's even been shown to stand up to other bullies from time to time. Binky's going on D tier. Francis, Fairly Odd Parents. Francis is a jerk and he loves it. All this kid wants is to be the absolute worst. Constantly beating up Timmy and his friends, and even being known to bully teachers into submission. No redemption, no secret heart of gold, just pure rage and actively enjoying it. He's pretty much just a violent dickhead. Francis goes on A. Mr. Crocker, Fairly Odd Parents. What do you do when an authority figure in your life that's supposed to stop bullying from happening happens to be one of your biggest bullies? Welcome to Timmy Turner's life. No wonder this kid's got fairies. Timmy's fairy-obsessed school teacher is a grade A asshole. This guy pretty much just relishes in seeing his students miserable. He's not like physically violent or anything, but emotionally, this guy's just out there to make kids sad. Probably gonna go B tier. And last up, Vicki from Fairly Odd Parents. The final boss of childhood torment. If Crocker is a bully when it comes to kids, Vicki is a goddamn supervillain. This is pretty much a teenage dictator in a crop top. She's loud, violent, sadistic. She pretty much spends her days either torturing children or finding new ways to dupe their parents into paying her to torture them. She is cruel to the bone and enjoys nothing more than making kids sad. She is pure, uncut evil. This red-headed nightmare goes on S tier. Poor Timmy. And there you have it, nerd. That's my list. Think you can do better? I doubt it, little baby. If you leave a comment telling me which bullies you thought were the worst, or if I missed any, I will personally come to your house and kick your butt. Like and subscribe. Or else, dork. Thanks for watching.